So this part of the series is a little bit intricate, and so keep with it. Positive roles of differences. We can also ask what positive contribution each Gospel record makes in its distinctiveness. The Gospel of Matthew offers a simpler account in some ways. It does not require the additional linguistic complexity that arises when an account makes explicit the roles of the elders of the Jews and the friends that the centurion sends. For example, the material in Luke 7:3-5 about the Jewish elders does not need to be present in Matthew's version, and Luke 7:6, which mentions the friends, finds a simpler analogue in Matthew 8:7. The statement in Luke 7:7, therefore I did not presume to come to you, is also not in Matthew. By omitting some details, Matthew puts greater concentration on the main point. Jesus has power to heal at a distance merely by speaking a word. Though Matthew's account is shorter, it does contain one significant piece that does not occur in Luke, namely Matthew 8:11-12. I tell you, many will come from the east and west and recline at the table with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven, while the sons of the kingdom will be thrown into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. A similar saying occurs in Luke 13:28-30 in the context of different episode. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth when you see Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and all that the prophets in the kingdom of God, but you yourselves cast out. And people will come from east and west, from north and south, and recline at the table of the kingdom of God. And behold, some are at last who will be first, and some are first who will be last. In both passages, Jesus warns hearers about religious presumption. In Matthew 8:5-13, centurion faith contrasts with the lack of faith within Israel 8:10. This contrast makes it appropriate for Jesus to warn Israelites not to presume on enjoying messianic salvation merely because they are Israelites apart from faith on their part. Similarly, Luke 13:22-30 warns Israel not to depend on the mere fact that Jesus ministered among them in Luke 13:26, or that they see themselves as heirs of the patriarchs, Luke 13:28. Matthew shows repeated concerns for the unique role of the Jews and the issue of Jewish rejection of Jesus. Matthew alone has the expression sons of the kingdom. The sons of the kingdom will be thrown into the outer darkness, Matthew 8:12. These sons of the kingdom are Jews who are resisting his ministry. They have the privilege of having a certain nearness to the kingdom, that is the kingdom of God, and yet tragically they will be thrown into the outer darkness. Matthew alone includes the pointy threat, therefore I tell you, the kingdom of God will be taken away from you and given to a people producing its fruits, Matthew 21:43. Matthew, more than the other Gospels, emphasizes the Jewishness of Jesus, Matthew 1-17. Twice Jesus emphasizes his ministry to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, Matthew 10:6, 15-24. But Jews who presume on their heritage are in danger of being left out. This theme is important to Matthew. It comes out pointedly in our first passage, Matthew 8:5-13, because Jesus commends the centurion for his faith and contrasts this commendation with the failure in Israel. Truly I tell you, with no one in Israel have I found such faith, Matthew 8:10. The centurion was a Roman soldier, not a Jew. His Gentile character comes more starkly to the foreground in that Matthew does not mention elders of the Jews as intermediaries. Luke, by contrast, explicitly mentions the Jewish intermediaries. The intervention of the intermediaries is not the final reason why Jesus answered the centurion's request. It is the centurion's faith, not the merit of the Jews, that leads to blessing. Luke 7:9. But Jews who wanted to rely on their privileges might nevertheless be tempted to overlook this point and take refuge in the special role that the centurion appears to create for them. The passage in Matthew helps to remove this mistaken notion. All in all, Luke and Matthew do not disagree in substance about the role of the centurion's faith or the role of the Jewish religious privileges. They do differ in emphasis, and that difference in emphasis has practical value when Matthew is addressing a Jewish sense of privilege. Now let us return to Luke. What kind of emphasis do we find when we read the account in Luke? Like Matthew, Luke makes the point that Jesus has the power to heal at a distance. In addition, the fact that the centurion is a Gentile still comes out in Luke 7:9. The Gospel of Luke as a whole, together with Acts, has a theological interest in the theme that salvation is going out to the nations, Luke 24:47, Acts 1:8. This theme is confirmed when we see Jesus ministering to the centurion, and Matthew and Luke agree in this respect. But does Luke have, in addition, some distinctive emphasis? By mentioning the Jewish elders, Luke makes plain of the centurion's humility. The elders say prominently, "He is worthy to have you do this for him," in 7:4. The centurion himself, by contrast, states plainly that he is not worthy, 7:6. That is, he means that he is not worthy of having Jesus perform a healing for him, which is why he has sent the elders of the Jews, whom he considers more worthy than himself. In addition, he is not even worthy to have you come under my roof. Therefore, he says, "I did not presume to come to you," which again expresses his humility. The Gospel of Luke has humility as a theme. He, the Lord, has brought down the mighty from their thrones and exalted those of the humble estate. For everyone, that's in Luke 1:52. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but one who humbles himself will be exalted. Luke 18:14. Luke devotes attention to social outcasts and marginalized people, women, the poor, the tax sick, the tax collectors, Gentiles, etc. Luke chapter 4 verse 18, Luke 7:21 to 23, Luke 7:1 to 10. By explicitly including the role of the intermediaries, by including the contrast between worthy and not worthy, has highlighted the theme of humility of Jesus' mercy to the unworthy. So where is this all getting us? What Poythress is trying to do is, here you've got two contradictions. Matthew saying the centurion came to Jesus, and Luke where it says he sent people on his behalf. And what Poythress is now doing, he looked at Augustine, he looked at Calvin, he looked at contemporary scholars, but now he's saying, right, let's look at what the book of Matthew is about. It's about the Jews generally. It's written to Jews. It's kind of trying to minister to Jews. So when we read the passage about the centurion, what is it saying there in that context? And then the Gospel of Luke, there's a lot about humility in it, and this issue of humility comes out in the text. And by looking at the broader perspective of Matthew and the broader perspective of Luke, we see the finer nuances in each of these texts. And once we see those nuances, the contradictions begin to be resolved. I'm not saying all contradictions, but we begin to see why one writer emphasized and left something out, emphasized something or left something out within the text. It has value when some writer in the Gospels leaves something out or puts something in that seems to contradict the other writer. They're trying to say something. Okay, that's what Poythress is saying, and we'll get we'll look at this in more detail a little bit. I know it's deep, but we need to do this just one more time.